Yo, what up, and welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, all right, tell you what, I'm here with my boy TK Mal, and we're gonna sit here and watch and see what's going on with Tucker Carlson, the NSA. TK, my brother, have you heard about this?
I watched his segment on it previous to this, not this one, but the one where he actually came out and said the NSA has information that you could have only gotten from my private text messages. Um, I haven't really heard any follow-ups beyond that. I've heard a lot of punditry about it, like how it's unbelievable because, I mean, how are there whistleblowers left in the NSA?
I feel where you are, right? I mean, no, but like this is the reason why why I feel like we should cover this as a whole is because I've been doing a lot of stuff about the cathedral and the oligarchy as a whole, and I kind of feel like this directly applies to all that.
Oh, definitely, because good old Tucker here, he is espousing a bunch of ideas that are completely self-consistent, but they would disarm the ones that enable people to actually take action. Um, And matter of fact, I would actually go so far as to say that at this point, calling like CRT actually anti-white, which is something that very few people go out on a limb to do. Um, Matter of fact, you might have noticed a little while back that all across all of the different aspects of media, a lot of people were saying you got to fight back against CRT because it's racist against everyone. And to some extent, that's true. But if something goes after someone, like if something goes after someone for being a Mexican, a white person, an Italian, whatever, you say that's bad because don't go after someone for being that thing. It's not because it's racist against everyone. You defend where you're attacked, and it's a lot of people trying to make that narrative be different than it is. But I would actually say that Tucker's going so far as actually giving out ideas out there that would enable like the populace to actually take action, which is why the cathedral is very not on board with him doing what he's doing.
I agree with you, right? And for all of those who don't know what the cathedral is, let me give you a very brief, you know what I'm saying, explanation. You know what I'm saying? And I put these videos out, and I know, like, I mean, the TTS shit was kind of like difficult to listen to or whatever the case is, and that's why like I read the last one. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying really hard because I want y'all to have the information because informations are weapons. You know what I mean? At this point, and we need to have. I noticed more people using this label, which I coined a long time ago and always had an ambivalent aesthetic feelings about. I used it's better. Plus academia. In other words, the intellectual institutions at the center of modern society, just as the church was the intellectual institution at the center of medieval societies. But the label is making a point. The Catholic Church is one institution. The cathedral is many institutions, yet the label is singular. The transformation from one to many, literally e pluribus unum, is the heart of the mystery at the heart of the modern world, right? And the reason why this is important, right, legitimately, is that, hang on, let me find this real quick because like it's kind of what I mean, like really something that everybody needs to understand, right? Is that there's a reason why, oh, here we go. So it's not just that everyone, or at least everyone cool, is on the same page. It's more like everyone is reading the same book at the same speed. No wonder all the peasants are seeing conspiracies in their motherfucking soup. If you saw a group of bright red pigeon dots move across the evening sky this way, what would you think they were? Pigeons? Remote control pigeons illuminated by lasers? Sometimes even Occam is baffled. Right? And this is something that, like, I think we all need to really have an understanding of, and really, you know, I mean, have this conversation about as a whole, is that there's an oligarchy in this country that we're not able to see unless you really have the, you know, I mean, like, have those sunglasses from They Live, you know, I mean, with Roddy Piper, to like really expose it to you. And that's what I'm gonna give you. You know what I mean? That's why, like, I put the propaganda book up on my channel, and I read it to y'all. You know what I mean? It's important that, you know what I mean, like, it's in my playlist. Go look at my playlist and stuff, right? If y'all want to find it, right? You know what I mean? Like, go to my channel, go to my playlist. I have propaganda, I have the Art of War from Machiavelli, right? And I actually started a playlist for, you know what I'm saying, the Gray Mirror content that I'm doing right now. This is really important because it's going to give you the tools to be able to understand all this shit. But in the meantime, you ready, my brother?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's rock.
A couple of days ago, we told you that the National Security Agency had read our emails and was effectively threatening us with them, leaking them. It's not a statement you would make lightly. No one wants to go on TV and say, the government's spying on me. You sound like a lunatic, except when it's true. And in this case, it is true. And of course, it's not just this show. They're spying on a lot of people, and they should stop because it's illegal. Yesterday, we had a long conversation with officials at the National Security Agency. We got a statement out of them, and they effectively conceded, yes, they read our emails. They have some justification for it, but it's not justified. It never is, except in cases when national security is threatened, and nothing that we did would ever threaten national security, period. Liberals used to understand that. They were very worried about this program. Back in 2006, Joe Biden himself said he was worried about the NSA spying on American citizens.
I don't have to listen to your phone calls to know what you're doing. If I know every single phone call you made, I'm able to determine every single person you talk to. I can get a pattern about your life that is very, very intrusive. And the real question here is, what do they do with this information that they collect that does not have anything to do with Al-Qaeda? And we're going to trust the president and the vice president of the United States that they're doing the right thing. Don't count me in on that.
Yo, ain't it weird how, like, Joe Biden used to actually be a person?
Yeah. It looks like the man currently in office is wearing that other guy as a skin suit.
Yeah, like he's wearing a Joe Biden suit.
Yes,
right.
And that's also a good demonstration of what we were talking about earlier with information and ideas being weapons, right? So the way these guys work, and the way, honestly, we need to start thinking about working, not in a malicious way, but just in order to get by, as we need to start making moves, you know, whether we're talking about on a political level or shit on a personal level. We gotta, if this is the playing field that's gonna be out there, we got to know how to shuck and jive to get ahead in life, right? So what he did there, what Joe Biden did there, was real clever. He took something that was true, that was the sound argument, and then he used that as a cudgel to beat his political opposition with. Now, the very moment that he is in charge of that apparatus, he no longer acknowledges those facts. Because as long as he does not acknowledge the weapon, it can't be used against him, and he's got much more powerful political weapons against everyone that he allows near him, so he doesn't have to worry about that line of questioning ever popping up, right? So what we gotta do is we gotta recognize that's what he does, not go, oh, he's a hypocrite, although he is being a hypocrite. We have to understand that if that's how it's gonna be, then we gotta hit him over the head with these whatever facts that are at hand, but also not be restricted to that, just as they're not restricted to their set of facts.
Right. And on top of that, I think that, and this is what I do a lot of times, and like a lot of times when I debate with people, is I stop having their conversation. Right. Like, you have to have your conversation. Right. It's important that you stop, you know what I mean, using their terms and their ideologies and their mentalities, because if they know how you're going to move, they know what you're going to say, it beats you already to begin with. Like, I'm done saying I'm an American, right? Like, I'm done with that mentality altogether, because it's being used at this point to stand here and herd us in like fucking cattle. And I think that's something that we really need to, how do I put this? Like, stand here and like separate ourselves out and be able to have a way to defend ourselves in different manners that they're not ready to defend upon.
We need to balkanize, basically.
Well, yes. I mean, we need to be able to, like, you can't, or how do I put this? So if you want to stand here and defeat a larger, force, you need to force them into a smaller area. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Battle of Thermopylae or whatever the case is, right? And you want them to fight on your ground, and you want them, you want their numbers to stop mattering. So we need to stand here and start defending smaller areas and get to the point where we go, all right, this is, this is what the fuck we're going to defend. This is what we're going to do. We need to stand here and hold our ground against them, not on a national level, but on a level of, our states or our communities, because you cannot win this battle on a national level. It just doesn't work that way. And when they're met with resistance, and that's why, like, they can't come get our guns, right? It's because they know damn well they have to go through a doorway to come get them. And, if you have guns in the house, that means that you can take out, like at least 3 or 4 of them before they fucking finally rush you and get to where, they're going to stand here and, like actually get inside of the house. They know this. They'll lose too many individuals to fucking do it. So the thought is that you have to stand here and defend your state, defend your community, whatever it is. And stop saying you're an American. Stop worrying about what happens in California. Stop worrying about what happens in New York. Stop worrying about what happens in fucking New Jersey or, Atlanta or Chicago, because that doesn't matter. Fuck those places. They're already lost. We have to defend what's ours right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm 100% down with what you're saying there. Like, I'm personally trying to make some dietary changes in my life so I can eat locally produced food, and that is turning out to be more of a chore than I thought it would be. But you gotta realize that when you're talking about any sort of identity, it's just an absolute minefield and shit show as an in general thing. You're not wrong, though, that what's happening with the American identity is that all of it is it's a way of bringing everyone down to the lowest common denominator in every single thing. So, like, the worst, shittiest gun laws that California can pass, they want to try to get imposed on everyone. And it's the highest taxes that they can get in one state. They want to get that everywhere. And that's just because that's the way it's working right now. I couldn't tell you exactly how to fix this particular system. I think Moldbug was right when he says, there's no fixing this. Like, how do you fix this gigantic mess?
Well, the answer is the Articles of Confederation. In the end of the day, right? The answer is that this should be 50 different countries instead of 50 different states under a federalized system. Like, we should have mutual defense pacts, but we should not be treating ourselves as if, we all live in the same fucking general vicinity. Like, there's a huge difference. Like, and I pointed this out in my video the other day where, like, I said, like, there's a huge difference between, mountains and deserts. The rainforest up in, Oregon and Washington as compared to, the swamps in Louisiana. These are giantly different places. And you cannot stand here and dictate how these individuals live one to the other and run a giant federalized system as a whole and I mean, I sat here and put that video out yesterday of everybody like listened the whole way. There's a point where they said, like the oligarchy will drive the people mad due to the fact that the ideas of power, will be the ideas that are, pushed the hardest inside of the oligarchy, because it gives the oligarchy more power. So it's more palatable, and it's more,
selected for.
Yeah, it's more selected for inside of that system as a whole. Right. So, that's what's going on right now, is that the idea is that, give the system more power, are the ones that are being pushed forward more often inside of our system. And it's not working for the people as a whole. And there's no check on their power. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way to like stand here and have any check on that power. Unlike, like a corporation, if it has a CEO, like he's responsible to the board of directors and the stockholders. And the customers of the company, you know what I mean? So like, if he starts acting like a mad fucking crazy person, there's a way to put a fucking check on it. There's an issue inside of our system where we have basically the whole thing is like an employee owned, system that just, has absolutely no checks and balances in any way, shape or form, other than the fact that the ideology will continue to be, fucking basically selected for through other individuals in the oligarchy, wanting to maintain more power. And that's it.
Right. And I think a central problem with this is the idea that, like, for some reason, the founders thought that you could have, just because you subdivided the power structure of an institution against itself, that somehow meant that institution would check itself. Like, fundamentally, I think that's the problem, because
the problem is it was formed under extreme circumstances was the issue, right? Like George Washington, like the reason why the Articles of Confederation was thrown out, and the modern day Constitution, was dictated in the manner in which it is today, is because of the fact that they needed to be able to pay for a war that had just happened. And in doing so, it's an extreme case where you need federal power. And in having that federal power, it kind of just, centralized our fucking country in D.C., well, Philadelphia at that point, but D.C. under, beginning under Thomas Jefferson, and like our country ended up becoming more centralized. And when it did so, it began to lead us to where we are today, as a whole. So, all right, let's keep going a little bit, see what we can get into as far as this video. Because Glenn Greenwald's on this bitch. I love Glenn Greenwald, man. Like, I think he's a stand-up motherfucker as far as journalists are concerned. So let's rock.
So now Joe Biden is in charge of the national security apparatus, and his administration has turned it on Americans who he has redefined as combatants, domestic terrorists, white supremacists. Where does this go from here? We think we know, and we're deeply concerned about it. We know the NSA is collecting data from American citizens, spying on them. They have a heart attack if you call it spying. That's exactly what it is. Let's stop using BS language. It's spying. In a House Judiciary Committee meeting today, a senior Microsoft executive said that most Americans would be stunned if they knew how often the federal government used secret orders to collect information on them.
While the recent news about secret investigations is shocking, most shocking is just how routine secrecy orders have become when law enforcement targets an American's email, text messages, or other sensitive data stored in the cloud. Throughout the Obama, Trump, and Biden administrations, up to a third of all legal demands we receive from federal law enforcement include secrecy orders, up to 3,500 in just 1 year. And these are just the demands on Microsoft. Add the demands likely served on Facebook, Apple, Google, Twitter, and others, and you get a frightening sense of the mountain of secrecy orders used by federal law enforcement in recent years.
So what we need is an investigation into what exactly is going on. We have the...
I think that's wrong, though. I don't think we need a federal investigation into what's going on.
Yeah, that's kind of like
Letting BP fucking like stand here and, you know, tell us what happened with the oil spill.
I think that is not even an apt enough comparison here. Like,
it's like it's like letting a pedophile stand here and explain what's wrong with Jeffrey Epstein. You know
no. Like, this is like letting Jeffrey Epstein run a school, which I think they did it.
It's like it's like letting a principal accused of rape, you know what I mean, like do the investigation into what happened with the rape.
Yeah, something like that. Because you have to know that when they authorize the budget for this investigation, they're going to expand their powers of investigation, meaning they're going to get more spying powers.
You know what needs to happen, like on some real shit. Like, honestly, go ahead.
Someone walks into the Capitol with a suitcase nuke.
Yo, look here, man. Stop Fed posting on my channel. Not positive. Not positive at all. Right? Tom Pease motherfucking disowns that statement. I'm gonna have to cut that motherfucker out. Like, legit. Like, that's, you know, that's borderline wrong. Right? That's borderline. Like, that would get me like invested out of the fucking CIA on my goddamn ass. No, what needs to happen is that, like, we need to have, yeah, man. You can't be saying shit like that, motherfucker. God damn it. Right? What needs to happen is that, like, the New York Times, or I'm trying to think here, like all journalists, like motherfuckers like me, need to have access to the NSA. Right? And what's going on.
That would be interesting.
Because at some point the truth, like everybody wanting to like break the story would force it to come out.
Yeah, I feel that if it weren't for the fact that Operation Mockingbird were a thing, and I'm pretty sure that, like,
I'm not part of Operation Mockingbird, not Mockingbird. You know what I mean? And like, there's a lot of independent journalists out here who are not part of Operation Mockingbird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that Facebook and the like can shut them down, and the ones they can't, they can, shoot their dogs.
Okay, I feel what you're saying, right? So, if there's enough independent journalists out here that legitimately, you know what I mean, like, if we had access to this, and I'll be real, like, I don't understand why this has to be kept secret. Like, because I'm not asking about their, like, fucking, like their programming to get into the shit, you know what I mean? I'm not asking about like their fucking like actual, fucking IPs that they use, or you know what I mean, they're like fucking, their actual coding to get in, and I'm not worried about any of that. What I want to know is what the fuck is it that you're taking? You know what I mean? I want to know what the fuck is it that you're doing, and I want to know the reasons why you're standing here, like actually doing these type of, like, why you're like, why you would spy on somebody, like what would cause that to happen, like what's the reason why you're gathering this information? You know what I'm saying?
I feel you, but
and I feel like that wouldn't harm national security.
I feel you, but I also feel like that's the reason they don't want to release it, is because it would be incredibly incriminating.
Oh, I know this. I know, but that's not the fucking point, right? I don't care if it's incriminating. Like, these people need to go to fucking jail.
Oh, I'm on that level with you. It's just that's why they're using all of these national security laws to obfuscate that. That's why.
See, now
they have all these FISA courts. That's why they're doing everything under the cloak of security. Well.
See, now the NSA is spying on us after what the fuck you said, because look, you know what I'm saying? Like, fucking, like, now your shit's breaking up on Discord. See, this is what the fuck happens when you start fucking Fed posting and shit, goddammit. Son of a bitch. Right. But, like, you know, like they need to go to jail. Like that's the thing, is like they need to face, you know what I'm saying, like actual criminal charges, and they need to be charged under, you know what I'm saying, like the laws that exist for regular citizens. Like if I can't record a phone call without permission in my state, and you're recording my phone calls and you don't have justified reason to do so, you know what I mean, and you did it, like you need to face jail time. You don't just need to be facing the ideology of, you know, like, oh, you're going to get, you know, reprimanded at work. No, you need to go to fucking jail like the rest of us would. You need to be criminally fucking charged and get to the point where you can no longer work in these fucking areas, you know. And I know that's never going to fucking happen, but that's what needs to happen as a whole. And if it doesn't, then we need to disband this fucking agency, you know what I mean? Because it's completely out of fucking control.
I mean, we need to disband most of the agencies.
I agree with you. Right. But let's keep going. You know what I'm saying? We're about to see baby boy Matt Gaetz out here, you know, white boy summer, partying it the fuck up with his little 17-year-old hookers and shit. Let's bang.
Largest bureaucracy in the history of mankind. There's never been a human organization larger than the American federal government. And so we need to know what the important parts of it, the parts with a lot of power, are doing in our name. We need an investigation. And today, at that hearing, at least one Republican member of Congress, Matt Gaetz of Florida, called for that.
The most watched cable news host has been stating for the last several nights that the NSA has been monitoring his communications. And amazingly, the NSA has issued a statement that is so couched, it is functionally an admission. And it's not like the NSA's never lied to us. I mean, we were told that there was no bulk collection of Americans' data. Turns out there was bulk collection of Americans' data.
Yo, tell me that dude's not a fucking cokehead.
I will not do so.
Yo, that dude is the most coke-headed motherfucking dude I've ever seen in my life. Like, legitimate. Like, you know for sure that guy likes fucking nose candy. Yo, legit. For fucking sure.
I don't know of any politicians who don't.
Well, okay. I
Ron
feel where
Paul,
you are.
maybe.
Yeah, Ron Paul seems like the type he wouldn't really like cocaine. I don't know, though. I could see him doing it, you know what I mean? Especially, like, you know, when, like, he was running for Congress and he was up there giving his speech. It's like, yo, legit. You know what I mean? Like, when we were all like, yeah, get him, Ron. You know what I mean? Like, yo, that dude, like, you could, like, maybe he went back to the fucking, you know, hotel and, you know, he banged a couple of rails off of a fucking hooker's, you know what I mean, titty. But, you know, but baby boy Matt Gaetz, like, that motherfucker is a for real cokehead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that means he's always going to be begging for them campaign donations, so you can count on them to be hungry for them.
I'm just 90% sure, like, that dude is a fuck. Like, I think he was on something at that moment. You know what I mean? Like, like he looked fucked up right there. You know, just keeping it all the way a buck with you. You know, let's keep going, though.
We cannot count on these people to police themselves. Join me in calling for an Inspector General investigation into any monitoring that the NSA or any other element of the intelligence community has engaged in relative to Tucker Carlson. Because these denials, these couch denials, raise more questions than they provide answers.
They gather the information and they threaten you with it. Information is power. The more they have, the more power they have over you. And if they don't like your politics, it's a problem. So we do need an investigation. And tonight, the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy of California, has called for that, an investigation by the House Intelligence Committee. We'll see what happens. Glenn Greenwald, meanwhile, is one of the people who is responsible for what we know about what the NSA does. He broke the original story of the NSA's mass surveillance under the Obama administration. He writes now for Substack. We highly recommend it. He joins us tonight. Glenn, thanks so much for coming on. So your position...
I'll be real, man. I really didn't like Tucker's show there for fucking Glenn Greenwald's fucking Substack.
What do you mean?
I think he rushed through, you know what I mean, that Substack show. You know what I mean? I think, like, he should show his Substack a little bit harder than what he did, and I'll be real. Y'all should go check out Glenn Greenwald's Substack. Substack.com/Glenn Greenwald or whatever it is. Search for it over there. You know what I mean? See if you can find him. Also check out the Gray Mirror. You know what I mean? Like, they got some really good stuff over there. Oh, and Matt Taibbi's over there too. Check out Matt Taibbi's shit if you head over there as well. I mean, legit, like, you know, fucking get these guys some love, show them some patronage, give them some likes, some, you know what I mean, whatever. You know what I mean, get them moved up the leaderboards over there. You know, fucking, like, I like Substack. It is a great resource. I just wish there was audio, more audio fucking availability for it. I mean, so I could listen to it going down the road rather than having to, like, stop and fucking read it somewhere or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Or having to read it in bed. Because I just don't have fucking time to read. Legit. But anyway.
Yeah. Glenn Greenwald was the dude who got chased out of his own newspaper, right?
Yeah. He created a newspaper. Or he created what was it? He created The Intercept, I think it was.
Yeah, The Intercept.
Yeah, and then they chased him the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? Because, like, he refused... because they refused to cover Joe Biden's son, Hunter, right?
Right.
And, like, fucking... He was like, oh, fuck that, I'm doing this story. And they were like, no, the fuck you're not. And he's like, what the fuck you talking... He's like, I started this fucking newspaper. And they're like, yeah, we don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like, we don't give a shit. You know, you're not going to fucking stand here and, you know what I mean, fuck with the goddamn Democrats because, you know, we want the Democrats to win. You know, and, like... He's like, hell with that, I'm a journalist, I'm going to do what I do. And he's actually, I think he lives in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, at this point.
Dude, if I were him, I would not be living in the USA.
Yeah, he doesn't live in the US, you know what I mean? But, like, he's the most Chad-ass homosexual, you know what I'm saying, in, like, I've ever heard in my life. You know what I mean? I'll be real with you. You know, like, and I got mad respect for the dude. Just in general, as a journalist, I think he is probably one of he is one of the most decorated journalists living today. You know what I mean? Like, he has a Peabody, he actually has a fucking Oscar and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, dude, he is bouting. Let's keep rocking though.
Position on this has remained consistent for more than a decade. American citizens, unless they pose some obvious national security threat, imminent national security threat, shouldn't be targeted by their own government for spying. Why is that not the position of everyone in journalism?
That's a really good question. You know, it's interesting when I did the reporting with Edward Snowden in 2013 and 2014, liberals loved that reporting so much that they gave us every award that they have to offer, the Pulitzer, the Polk, the film that was done about my work with Edward Snowden was given an Oscar. I went up on the Oscar stage. They couldn't lavish enough prizes and praise on us. And now here we are after the Trump years, and we know that the Democratic Party and journalism in general has aligned with the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI, and has aligned and merged with the security state. And so in response to the report that you did, you would think other journalists, just out of self-interest, even if they dislike your ideology and you, would say, we want to know whether the NSA is abusing their powers in order to spy on journalists they dislike. And instead they mocked it. They said that, oh, he has to be paranoid in order to think this. And they took the NSA statement that I have seen over and over, Tucker, over the last 8 years, that is designed to mislead the public. They use their carefully constructed words to say Tucker Carlson is not an intelligence target of the NSA, which may be true. But what that leaves out is that there are so many other ways that they have to spy on the communications of American citizens without making you a target, without getting a warrant. They have huge authorities that really haven't been reined in since 2013 and 2014. I'm glad to hear Kevin McCarthy, other GOP leaders calling for an investigation. But the reality is that in bipartisan Washington, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have been joining with the likes of Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell to expand the NSA, to kill any attempts to reform it. So these are kind of empty words.
I totally agree with that. Mitch McConnell's 100% on board with what they do. I got a number of calls and texts, one from Politico, asking me, well, who are you emailing? I mean, I think clearly you would never claim your emails are being read by the government unless you could prove it. Again, you sound like a crazy person. We can prove it. It happened. But now the line is, well, you must have been emailing the wrong people. I was under the impression as a journalist and an American citizen, I have the right to email anybody I want. Is that not the standard any longer?
Tucker, ponder the authoritarianism needed for them to say that. Think about the premise there. They're saying that if you talk to somebody that the...
All right, so like here's the statement that they gave. They said the agency is not allowed. It said the agency targets foreign powers from the United States. Right. it has never had any plans to take and try and take his program off the air. And that's all the NSA has said. Right? That's the entire statement that the NSA fucking actually fucking released about Tucker Carlson.
Right. So they said they're not trying to get him taken off air, and that they only target foreign threats.
Which means that, like, if his show was trying to communicate with, you know, I mean, say like a foreign entity or whatever it is to get a story, or, you know, I mean, like, you know, stand
No. It's worse. Like, what the NSA can do is that they can request the ISPs, which is the internet service provider, to route your communications through a certain route. And so basically, as long as the communication leaves the country, meaning the physical hardware is no longer in the US, they can spy on it without having to have a warrant, right? So what they'll do is they'll have Google send it to Canada and back, or to Great Britain and back, or to Mexico and back, because of course Google's got servers literally everywhere, so they can route it through there. AT&T's got satellites everywhere, so they can route phone calls, text messages, all that kind of stuff internationally without any problem. And then as soon as it's routed internationally, well, then NSA just passively picks it up.
I mean, I was always against this. Like, you know, I mean, like ever since, you know, like the entire Homeland Security thing came out, you know, I mean, during, you know, I mean, the fucking Iraq war and shit, because I was like, yo, this is terrible. Like, we shouldn't be doing this to our own citizens. You know, so like I've always been anti-security state as a whole. Like, this is a consistent mentality that I've had for fucking ever. Right? But the vast majority of citizens, and I couldn't, like, I was fucking shocked when I heard that, like, you know, WikiLeaks put that shit out and nobody cared. Like, nobody gave a fuck. Which I think is the problem as a whole. Like, if people got upset and stood here and went to war over this shit, like they stood here, you know what I mean, and like fucking, like, you know, started electing other individuals, started electing other fucking people, or, you know what I'm saying, like fucking really raised hell about these type of fucking things that were happening in this fucking domestic spying program, you know, this would have changed back then. And even today, the only reason we're having this conversation is because it's about Tucker Carlson, not because, you know what I'm saying, it's about them spying on an American citizen. It's just because it's Tucker. You know what I mean? Which I find to be just fucking tragic, which is why I don't think democracy works as a whole, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, yeah, because, you know, the reason why nobody cares is because all the Karens are like, well, just don't do anything wrong. And, well, the issue there is that the people who are spying on you get to decide what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, you know, and like they're all part of the same organization at this fucking point. You know, like the Democrats have, like, you know, like every so many years, like our politics completely pivots. You know, like where, you know, Republicans used to be the party of Abe Lincoln. You know what I mean? Then they, you know, we had the Southern strategy where they became the party of, you know, I mean, the fucking, you know, I mean, white Southerners, the golf club corporate interests. And like the corporate interest hasn't left the Republican Party, but the Democrats have picked up the corporate interest, in particular the tech people out in, you know, I mean, California. And, you know, I mean, the Democrats decided that they were going to be the party of the metropolitan elite. You know, and today, like, things are pivoting again because, you know, nobody likes either one of the parties. Something like it hit a fucking major point back in like 2012, maybe 2010, where something like 60% of voters were registered as independents, and neither party really had an actual majority, but there was no third party to pick up those independent voters. You know, I mean, there was nobody to stand here and go like, this is what it is, because those independent voters, they're populist from the left and the right, and nobody really wants to support the left wing. The right wing is libertarian and the left wing is, you know what I mean, like fucking socialist, and they don't have any meeting points to be able to be picked up. And this is the problem that you have with democracy. It always breaks down to this point of where, it's the urban elites versus, you know what I'm saying, the rural and suburban, fucking people who are more independent minded, as a whole. It happens in every country, but let's keep rocking with this. Let's finish this up.
The NSA has decided should be spied upon, it means that that person, even though they've been charged with no crime and convicted of nothing, is up to no good. They're like a terrorist or a threat, and you yourself are also. The whole point of the reporting that we did is that the NSA spies on millions and millions of people indiscriminately. If you're a journalist, it's almost impossible not to talk to a target of the NSA. They target everybody constantly all the time. That's why they're this huge, sprawling agency. But the authoritarianism that is pervading journalism says if you're talking to somebody the NSA doesn't like, you're a bad person.
And we're not going to put up with it at all. Once they have the information, then they threaten and control you, and that's what they were trying to do to us. Glenn Greenwald, I appreciate it and your reporting, which we have new appreciation for. Thank you.
All right, there we go. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of like the entire mentality, you know what I'm saying, as a whole. It's strange watching the media become the lapdogs of, this fucking corporate elite and this bullshit that, we have inside of our country. You know what I mean?
I mean, I feel you, but I kind of also feel like it's, I wonder how long it's basically been like this, but like the journalists and the government had the good sense to pretend it wasn't.
Well, it used to be that journalists did their fucking jobs and reported on what the government did. Right?
Yeah, you say that.
They did, though.
But,
they did. The journalism has always been an iffy prospect as a whole, right? Just
right.
Since its inception, probably, the fucking 1600s? Something like that. That it was really, became the fourth estate. It has always been an iffy type of thing where it had a slant. But on the same point, the idea of it being a corporate mouthpiece came to be in like the late 1800s in America. You know what I mean? Like where you had like the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and fucking whoever buying fucking journalists, and buying, fucking positive news coverage. Like, yeah, that's always been a fucking thing. But on the same point, it wasn't until the 1950s and 60s where you had, you had guys like William Randolph Hearst who promoted wars that was good for his business. But you didn't have the government literally dictating to the press what it was going to put out. And the press just licking the boots of the government like you have today.
Right. Yeah. I think this is
like under Kennedy it was super bad. Right, where like the journalists just kind of fawned all over fucking, JFK and Jackie and shit, and you had Bill Clinton get positive fucking, like shit from journalists, but you had right-wing journalists, you had opposition journalism, you had people who did their fucking jobs. Granted, even at that point, you had, fucking Operation Mockingbird in full effect still at that point. But you still had independent journalists. Like fucking 30 years ago, they would have never thought to shut down an InfoWars.
Right.
Who was fully independent. Like, that would have never happened.
At the same time there, that's back when they still had some, like, airwave regulation as far as what you could and could not say.
Yeah.
So I feel like, but the other thing on that is I don't know if the deregulation there is like a cause or effect. Like, was all that deregulated because they no longer felt like they needed to even put up the front? Or did that deregulation end up just somehow make the entire media apparatus even more political instead of having all the politics centered on like one or two executive decision makers? Because it used to be that in news media, basically the only person who had to worry about the politics was like the editor, because they would have to make sure that it was up to publishing guidelines so they wouldn't get libel, defamation, or just I think it's been a while, but I know for a while that uh, you had to have at least some amount of party balance if you're talking any sort of political thing on the airwaves. Um,
Well,
so
you used to have laws called calumnies, right?
right,
Where, if you put out false information, like your newspaper could be shut down. And that, I think that's a positive way to do things, right? But on the same point, that requires a ministry of truth.
right,
You know what I mean? And it should be a high guideline for doing some things of this nature. And
and
covering a story on a terrible level where you get a lot of things wrong, I feel like you should be held accountable in the open market for that. I feel like there should be unwritten rules to journalism. You know what I mean? Like there should be like rules about you having to, do full page front front page full stories, about we're sorry we got this wrong. I think that should just be an automatic thing.
all right, so then we're getting into kind of a chicken and the egg situation again, because like, do we have a dysfunctional society right now because of the journalism we have and the way of communication we're using? Or is it vice versa? Do we have absolutely dysfunctional journalists because of the way we communicate right now? Right.
Well, no,
So,
we have an absolutely dysfunctional journalism at the moment because of the fact that at the moment it's because we don't have a mechanism to make it better.
well, there is that, but I also feel like
it's the
there's
monopoly. It's the monopoly from cable is the problem.
right, right, right. I definitely feel you, but I also feel like if the average person was well socialized and not as insane as they are today, we you wouldn't have journalists doing these things. Like, just because you would
I
not
don't.
have a whole lot of people doing those things. Because their friends and family would slap them upside the head when they say, "Oh yeah, I mean, what's wrong with the government spying on you?" That is
Well,
something that,
it's a concentration of power.
yeah, I definitely feel that, but
It's a concentration of like where these individuals live, right? You know what I'm saying? Like all journalists for the most part who, either are on TV or work for major newspapers, either live in New York, LA, or Washington, D.C. You know what I mean? Or maybe like CNN if you're in fucking Atlanta. You know what I mean? But like, and they all go to the same goddamn schools. You know what I mean? They all fucking, they all come from the same crop of people. So like they all have the same mentalities. They all read, like they're all reading from the same books. And this is the whole point of the Cathedral as a whole.
right. And you see this around cities specifically because, I mean, if you've ever been on the wrong side of the tracks in any particular city, it all looks pretty similar.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's all like black people in like rundown fucking houses and shit and terrible fucking situations. But
And the rich parts are, they look different, but if you actually talk to the people, they're pretty similar too.
yeah. You know, and I'll be honest with you, like, you know, like I've been in a lot of major cities, you know what I'm saying? Like major fucking cities, like, you know, New York, Chicago, fucking DC, fucking Memphis, fucking Knoxville, fucking Miami. I've been like a lot of these places, right? And, you know, places where power is concentrated, you know what I mean? Like these individuals have a very elitist mentality, Boston as well, right? You know, they have a very elitist attitude that, you know, they're the only individuals who exist. You know what I mean? Like everybody else is fucking garbage human beings, you know what I'm saying, who don't deserve to have the right to have a say about shit. And now we're all feeling the same way about them, you know what I mean, which, you know, like fucking it's turning into like a fucking cold civil war inside of America as far as shit's really concerned. You know, and again, this is back to the fucking cathedral because they all get educated in the same way by the same people and get taught the same shit, and they don't ever leave these fucking little, you know, fucking bubbles that they live in.
Yep. And yep, they're continuing to accumulate power to themselves by depriving it of others of it.
I feel you. All right. Well, you know what I mean? Now that, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to have to edit out that little fucking retarded shit that you said, right? Other than that, you know, like, yo, my computer's melting the fuck down right now. So, you know what I mean? We're going to shut this down. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. Make sure, you know what I'm saying, you like, share, and subscribe. Drop a fucking comment. And, you know what I mean? Thank you, TK Mal, for coming to help me out. As always, you're an amazing guest. You know what I mean? You're always a great fucking co-host for me. It's appreciated. You know, and, you know what I mean? Like, we'll figure it. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. You know how the hell this operates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, man. Fucking, we're going to shut this bitch down. Peace be like one motherfuckers later.